scoot a little. Right there.
There we go. Alright. So I'm doing my key concept talk on mass transit. So different types of transportation systems that are usually more commonly used today are just normal transit like buses, and then highways for cars, airports for more long distance, and harbors and rail, usually more common for transporting like goods and industry, but they also can transport people. So highway and car transit is the main prioritizing use of cars like on highways and freeways to get around, which is the most common mode of transportation in America and most likely the world. And people almost always take their car over buses just because of this perceived knowledge or that buses and that kind of public transportation is dirty or unsafe. And so thus people use highways and freeways as main pathways to getting to and from work or to whatever or wherever they need to go. And this is called the car effect, where people will choose how they get somewhere, even if the public transportation is cheaper or faster, they'll still take their car. So here's a little video on
and that's where he became such a big fan of highways. Running Boston can give us a sense of how disruptive it was when the U.S. built huge highways through the cities after World War II.
These new highways will have a far-reaching economic impact on the entire nation.
That was definitely true. Highways revolutionized the way we transport goods. But inside cities, they demolished and isolated entire neighborhoods. They gave wealthy taxpayers a way out of the city and gave air pollution and traffic noise a way in. And they redesigned urban life around the car. Now 85% of Americans drive to work every day. So why did American cities agree to build highways that were bad for cities?
It's a really interesting question, and part of it actually goes all the way back to the 1930s, when a group of auto interests, such as General Motors, AAA, formed something called the National Highway Users Conference.
They began lobbying for taxes that would help fund highway construction. General Motors started to design what a new highway system could look like, and they displayed that vision at the 1939 World's Fair with Futurama, an exhibit featuring expressways that not only connected cities, but ran right through them. It was a design that allowed for more cars and less congestion. By 1955, the Department of Commerce echoed GM's vision with something called the Yellow Book. It laid out all the routes that interstates would take throughout the country under Eisenhower's Federal Highway Act of 1956, which funded the National Highway System.
A lot of people, it's, connecting most of the U.S.'s major cities, but the really interesting thing is you also have highways slicing right through the downtowns of many of these cities. Pretty much every major city in the country, New York, D.C., San Francisco, Philadelphia, you have major highways cutting through neighborhoods, requiring the demolition of lots of housing and other sorts of buildings.
That's largely because some of the key contributors to the plan were auto industry members, but no urban planners.
And that's because the profession barely even existed at the time. Nowadays, there's a value placed on preserving neighborhoods, on keeping cities intact, and that concept just really didn't even exist in the 40s and 50s. When people were talking about connecting the country with highways, it seemed pretty natural just to drive highways through the center of cities as well.
Local municipalities were particularly eager to build highways under this plan because 90% of funding came from the federal government, and the other 10% from states.
There's also a darker side to the reason why all these planners wanted to build highways through downtowns and urban neighborhoods.
Highways not only paved the way for more and more white people to move into homogeneous suburbs, they also provided cover for targeted demolitions inside the city.
During that era, federal policies and implicit priorities of planners dictated that you had, vibrant, dense downtown neighborhoods filled mostly with African American residents. Instead of being preserved under the plan, they were slated as targets for removal. They were considered blight, and an easy way of getting rid of that blight was by demolishing them and paving a highway through it.
Neighborhoods and streetcars were pushed aside to make way for the automobile.
Look at the neighborhoods of Black Bottom and Paradise Valley in Detroit.
When you go back to the 30s and 40s, these are thriving, dense neighborhoods filled with hundreds of thousands of residents and businesses. And if you go back today, they're mostly just empty grass plots.
This wasn't just a historical accident. It became a pattern in cities across the country. Poor and minority residents were displaced to make way for highways, and white residents used those highways to commute into the city for jobs and commute back home at night.
The only exception to this pattern is in places where highways were slated to go through wealthy neighborhoods.
There were actually proposals to put a highway through Northwest DC and through Greenwich Village in Manhattan. But you can guess what happened there.
Anywhere where residents had the means to organize and protest, they were often able to stop the highways from being built. Whereas in places where residents didn't have the political capital and other sorts of privileges that allow you to do that, their neighborhoods ended up being demolished, and they're now highways today.
Even before he signed the Federal Highway Act of 1956, Eisenhower was already a really big fan of highways in general. Part of that has to do with his time in Germany during the World War.
Click this screen.
Alright, well, from that video you can see that a lot of the government, when they were building these giant freeways and highways, they constructed them in different places that they wanted to get rid of, like, bad neighborhoods, and that was an easy way to do it, and it didn't look like they were doing something as bad as it looked when they were first doing it. And now we have public transportation. So this is just like a little GIF or GIF of what it would look like if people all got onto like public transportation. So there was like people in cars, then this space just keeps getting smaller and smaller. If they all were decided to use public transportation. And public transportation is usually a lot cheaper and accessible in big cities where traffic is usually a problem. And private transportation, especially common here in the Bay Area, is more exclusive mode of transportation. For example, Google has its own line of buses to transport its workers, which has people protested a couple of years ago because they didn't like how exclusive it was, and went right through the Muni bus stops, so all the people that didn't have access to the Google buses kind of were made to look like they were more in poverty than they were. Private transportation is meant to recruit more people from public transportation, just because this is more luxurious and cleaner than like normal public, like metros and buses and trains and that sort of stuff. So here's another slide on the car effect. So there was actually an experiment or investigation on people. So there was players or people who chose whether they wanted to take a car or metro. And the metro was fixed rate, which is this black line, and then it shows what the car cost. So it was fluctuating based on traffic and weather and that sort of external factors. And the car was usually more expensive, but more often than not, that was picked by people. And people are expected to learn from their mistakes. But in every game, there's a clear car effect, which is just people always will want to take their cars, even if it's faster or cheaper than an alternative public mode of transportation. And then this is kind of like an irrational bias towards automobiles, instead of considering all travel modes and choosing the one that saves the most time and money. People prefer to drive even when it's not the best option. So here's another video, the little closing video, and some questions to think about while you're watching. So how could we have improved America's transportation system when they were first coming together in the 30s? And after that, and today, how can we improve America's public transportation systems to better serve the people?
Around the world, as many as 25 countries have high-speed rail systems connecting major cities. But the U.S. has been lagging behind in modern methods of public transportation. Recent reports suggest that American cities rank among the worst for transit systems. So why is U.S. transit so bad? Well, recent reports suggest that American cities rank among the worst for transit systems. So why is U.S. transit so bad? Well, after World War II, countries like Japan and Germany invigorated their economies through federally sponsored rail construction. But the United States chose to invest in their interstate highway system. Beginning in the 1950s, the government paved tens of thousands of miles of roads all over the United States. This road network helped encourage the popularity of automobiles and more spread out city planning, called sprawl. But the effects of city sprawl on commute times, the rising cost of gasoline and oil, and growing traffic have become a problem today. In major cities like Los Angeles, car traffic constantly clogs the freeways. Even the New York City transit system, which can serve up to 6 million commuters on a busy day, is known to many as being dirty, unreliable, and underfunded. On the other hand, London, England has the oldest subway in the world and is significantly more efficient. The Tube was constructed in the mid-1800s and serves 1 billion people per year, covering an area of 600 square miles. London also has a great rail infrastructure, with high-speed trains reaching out to Scotland and France. Another success story is Seoul in South Korea. Its subway system is the longest in the world, with 315 miles of track. The transit stations are high-tech and modern. Free Wi-Fi, heated seats, and TV are available for riders. In many Asian and European countries, trains are almost always on time, whereas New York subway sticks to the schedule about 75% of the time. Part of the reason for America's transportation deficiency is the difficulty in passing spending legislation. Republicans in particular have been reticent to raise taxes to federally fund transit programs, and a high-speed rail could potentially cost $150 billion. But soon, legislators may have no other choice but to invest heavily in newer, better forms of public transit. In 2014, the White House reported that up to 65% of America's major roads were rated in less than good condition. Also, nearly half of American citizens lack access to public transit. Clearly, if the U.S. wants to keep pace with other nations, public transportation needs to be a higher priority. China is making a great deal of investment into many sectors of the American economy. To learn about how much of the U.S.
So, important things to note from that video. As you can see, like only 45% of Americans even have access to public transportation. So the only thing really to do is to drive a car and then take up highway and freeway space, and that just causes more problem, especially when, like, also it said that 65% of roads are in less than good condition. So there's just no, like, really easy, safe way to get around. So do you guys have any ideas on how we can improve this? Yes.
Bird electric scooters. No, just kidding. I mean, looking to other countries, I don't know, maybe some sort of, to incentivize people to use, first of all, I mean, we need to make our public transportation system a lot better, like they were talking about, and like put more funding into it. And then after that, like incentivize people to take it with like certain amenities, and possibly like make driving a car like worse by like, I don't know, putting extra fines or something, or making them go in a certain lane or something like that. like a lot more people would start taking public transportation. And then like, I don't know.
Yeah, another thing to add, so San Francisco is actually building a subway or metro system, and just recently they laid down 3 miles of wrong track, so they have to redo that whole thing, so it doesn't seem like it's like a focus, or they're really trying to make it like a good thing. Yeah, Maddie?
I agree with Zach, but I also think that people who make a lot of money are always gonna like drive their fancy cars. But I think a lot of people in the middle and lower class, now that gas is really starting to rise with the pricing, are gonna have more of an incentive to take public transportation. And I think now is a good time for the government to kind of boost it up, because that will save them a lot of money in the long run if we improve our public transportation systems now. And just like some of the new muni buses got nicer, I know like a lot of them are really run down, but they're starting to get a little better, I've noticed at least, but I think it needs a lot of change.
Can you imagine reasons why people would want not to improve this transportation system? I mean, that's a different way of thinking about the same problem, right? Like, you can think about like, why would you want to improve it?
Spending tax money.
Like, is there a reason why it's so bad? Like, why is it that
Taxes
people?
have to be raised.
What's that?
The taxes have to be raised.
Or they're
Taxes
spending
should
it
be
in
raised.
other places, or they want, I don't know, they're making more off tolls or something, I don't know.
I think I don't drive, so I normally rely on either public transit, or since in San Francisco I rely on either Uber or Lyft.
Yeah.
And I tend to more rely on Uber or Lyft than public transportation because of convenience, because it just shows up. You're like, okay, I have my Uber, okay, it's here, it gives me directly where I need to go. And I think that's because like public transit, yes, it's not super on schedule, and two, trying to figure out what bus to take, blah blah blah, kind of how to get there, and then walk, and then figure all that stuff out. So I think not many people want to fix it because it's taxpayers' money, and also there are a lot of other things that are just like cars are convenient, and services like Uber or Lyft are convenient.
That's a little bit of a feedback loop problem, though. That if not very many people are taking the bus, they're like, oh well, we shouldn't run as many buses, right? They don't run them as often if there aren't as many people because they want to have them full. And so then people are like, well, if I have to wait 20 minutes for the bus, I may as well take an Uber.
Yeah.
And so then they
The
make it right. Whereas if you get everybody on, if everybody was taking the bus, you could have buses every 3 minutes.
How's this public transport system in Marin County?
It's
okay.
not great.
Non-existent.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not non-existent.
Well, nobody ever
There's
takes. I've never
Golden Gate
taken it.
A
Transit,
lot of
which
people
is
take it.
buses that run in the morning and in the evening to bring people into downtown and come out of downtown. And then there's buses that go to like different places in Marin, but it's not super connected.
That's not true. I've taken them for like years.
I've taken them a lot. It's just that, you try to figure out how to get from
It's probably
Kentfield to
over-
Mill Valley, and you have to go take the 22 down to Strawberry and then transfer another bus to Mill Valley from Strawberry.
Yeah,
So
not
why
a
do
lot
you
of
think
people take
why do you think it's not denser or more? Why do you think? I mean, it seems complicated to go from. If I were to live in San Rafael, feels like it would be complicated to go to downtown San Francisco.
There's
by
lots
bus.
to go straight from.
And yeah,
Is there?
I mean,
Yeah, because there's a transit center in
Yeah.
San Rafael.
Oh, yeah, there's
It's-
huge transit.
and like if you think about the money you'd save, like Jake lives in Novato, and there are buses that go from Novato to downtown that take a long time and it's way faster to drive. But if you were to take the bus, you'd save so much money, because how much gas do you spend going to and back school?
That's like 50
Sixth
miles.
of a tank,
So, yeah.
something like that.
That's interesting. So how much does it ride cost?
It's like
To go to school on that?
$4, $3.50.
It's, well, for an adult, it's $8.
No, like for your car.
Oh, well, I drive a Prius, so gas isn't that bad. But, so that's like 25 miles plus the bridge is another, that's like $6.
7 now.
And then, what else?
So 25 miles one way or both way?
25 miles one way.
So
So you're 50 miles.
25 miles a gallon, so it's a gallon, right? So it's a gallon of gas?
Yeah, but the way, well, this is the interesting thing. People think about the cost of gas. Really, the cost of owning a car is the federal government makes businesses reimburse people for car use at about 50 cents a mile. That's how much it costs to own the car, maintain it, pay for the gas, pay for the insurance, on average. So, 50 miles, that's like $25 of gas and wear and tear on your car.
Plus $8 for parking.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
pay
Plus the
for
parking,
Yeah.
so you're looking at $30 round trip from the bus with your car.
versus.
And
Well,
then
then the bus is only. Well, if it's $8 one way, like $16, I feel like I don't know.
it's
That's-
$8 from.
Yeah.
No, I think it's $2 on the
Depends if
No,
you're
the
if you're under
54 is
18.
like an
What about
express
the
bus.
That's,
And how
without
much
the toll, it's not as much, right?
But the thing about the bus is it's still stuck in traffic.
So-
with your car, what if there was a BART train?
They
Well,
proposed
or,
that.
or if there was, or
Oh,
if there was
so
a
much
lane
better.
that was
It
just
goes
a
under.
bus only lane, right? So in Paris, what they've done is they've taken all the streets, and they shrunk them. So the first thing they did is they got rid of about 30% of all the parking spots in Paris,
Yeah.
and transformed those into like wider sidewalks. Then they took most of the streets that were like 4 lanes, and they transformed it into 2 lanes, right? To the point where it was really unbearable to take your car in Paris. And what they've done is the space that they like took, they made designated bus lanes. And now the buses are like super fast because they're the only ones in that lane, and they are like. And now it actually becomes, and the network was always there, but the buses were stuck in traffic, so nobody wanted to take the bus. And now, it's a way
Are
to
less
get around.
cars being made in France now?
No, I don't think less car, because unless you live in Paris, or in one of the big cities like Lyon or Marseille or whatever, right? It's like, if you live in the countryside, you still need a car, right?
So they're not losing jobs, more jobs are being made from the new, like, public transportation system?
I'm not sure the issue is making jobs.
But that could,
I think the issue is like, how do people get to work, right? And I think what they've managed to do is, at least for people inside Paris, is to reduce the amount of commute time by making it more efficient to take the bus. But that took some pretty politically risky choices. Like, people were really angry. Like when people were seeing parking spaces disappear and streets getting narrower or lanes being taken by buses, people were like up in arms saying like, what the heck? But now that they see that the system works, they're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, Dublin
It took 20
is
years
the
for-
same.
What's
Dublin is the same. They always had BART, but they now brought in a tram system that is the Lewis, and it's taking up everywhere. Like, it is now, Dublin has become the 9th most congested city in the world because of the construction of the Lewis, because the streets were already tiny and now they're even smaller. Also, the bus system is really good, really good. You can go anywhere. Well, that's probably because Dublin's tiny. Also in Paris is really small. Like, it's really small. So taking the metro is like super easy. I know that I've walked from one side of Paris to the other side of Paris in like 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm. It's the same size as San Francisco, without the hills.
Yeah.
But the history is about, like you're saying, like it's about prioritizing cars. You don't have to pay for the road when you drive on it, for the most part. But a lot of money goes into having those roads. Whereas if you take a train somewhere, like Amtrak, the law says that it has to be completely self-sufficient with no subsidies. So the price is artificially low for driving. because taxes are going to creating the infrastructure. And things like San Francisco used to have a lot more streetcars. Like it used to be streetcars going out Geary, out Mission Street, and they tore those all out and replaced them with buses. When they were conceiving BART, as Zach was saying, the original idea was it was all the counties of the Bay Area were getting together to create this transportation system, and the idea was for there to be a BART line that came out to the Presidio and went across the Golden Gate Bridge and up into Marin.
Cool. It looks really cool, but of course all the Marin people didn't want that because they know that, of course, then some bum from like whatever is going to be wherever in the Bay Area is going to get be able to get to like.
So Marin decided to opt out. Perhaps
could get to the base of like Mount Tam and then start littering everything and doing all sorts of other crap.
So as you guys are thinking about your comparison towns, right, and you start thinking about why is it that the population in Mill Valley doubled since 1950, but the population in Benicia was multiplied by 20, right?
Here it is.
I mean, it's really interesting. And if you look at, again, all those cities that you guys chose had pretty much had the same racial makeup in 1950, right? That's why you chose them. And yet today, the racial makeup is really different, right? And then, again, think hard about, what is it about those cities what is it about the East Bay? Right? What is it about the East Bay that was so radically different from what happened up in Marin? Right? And it could be schools, it could be highways, it could be displacement as people were forced to leave, I mean, if you think about the fact that the African American population dropped to, I think somewhere around 80,000 people down to, what was it now? 5, 10?
It's like 50 people in Mill Valley, right, Zach?
What?
What's the African American population?
Just like none. Just like one. Just like a single-digit percentage.
But anyway,
I don't know. That was also in the census 10 whatever years ago.
It'll be interesting for you guys to really think about that. Why is it think, and again all those things are related, right? All of those topics are. School is related to how how much property tax you have, which also funds schools, which also, right? I mean, all of that stuff is interrelated. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Good work.
you.